An exclusive investigation by 4TT News into a taxpayer-funded NGO reveals shocking details. The Trinbago Unified Calypso Organization, TUCO, the local body responsible for representing calypso music and over 600 practicing artists, made a request to the Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism last year, seeking payment for various cultural activities. TUCO, which is currently indebted, did not receive a response from the ministry more than 6 months after the request was made. Fast forward to April 6, 2015. A company bearing the name of Waterwheel Studios Limited submitted a proposal to TUCO. The director of that company, Vaughn Norega, requested $1.25 million to host a camp in the name of the late Lord Kitchener. The proposals gave a start date of April 30th to June 30th, 2015. The usual process for such proposals would normally go through TUCO's Finance Committee, followed by the General Council, after which a decision is then taken based on the availability of funding and the fulfillment of certain necessary criteria. However, in this case, this did not happen. The Finance Committee nor the General Council approved the proposal. In just 7 days after the proposal was submitted, the minister himself wrote to TUCO. His letter begins, "The funding enclosed, $2.5 million, has been secured for your organization." The letter went on to name the projects that the payment was for. The last item listed was for one Calypso After Carnival, a tribute to Alwyn the Lord Kitchener Roberts. The item is listed as a project of TUCO. However, this is the same proposal that was submitted a few days prior to TUCO by an unknown company, and it wasn't even approved. How could the minister possibly know and approve payment for an unapproved proposal? Sources inside the ministry told 4TT that the usual signing officers at TUCO refused to sign the check, citing improper internal procedures. However, 3 high-ranking officials at TUCO came together one weekend and signed off on the payment. Check number P00031901 was issued in Norega's personal name for $1.25 million taxpayer dollars. A source told us that TUCO may not be able to meet its salary commitments and was concerned as to why this individual was paid. 4TT News investigated. Vaughn Norega is a director on the board of the National Carnival Commission. The Commission is a state agency that coordinates all carnival-related activities throughout the country under the aegis of the government. TUCO receives funding from the Commission. Norega is also the personal photographer and videographer of Minister Douglas. He travels with the minister, documenting his trips. A source close to Norega confirmed, yes, he goes everywhere with the minister, taking pictures and videos and editing them. He is working on the minister's campaign. 4TT News further investigated Waterwheel Studios Limited. The company was incorporated April 21, 2015, 11 days after it submitted a request for $1.25 million that taxpayers footed the bill for. We visited the company's listed address, number 3, 5th Street West, Dinsley Avenue, Tacarigua. 4TT attempted to get answers to many troubling questions. We arrived at a residential property. Neighbors told 4TT News that there is no such company at the address. We also spoke to several companies which Waterwheel Studios listed as providing services for on its proposal. When contacted, none of the companies had a record of any dealings with Waterwheel Studios in the past. We also looked into the proposed camp. The event never occurred as proposed. Mr. Norega had proposed the camp to honor Calypso and to give the young people something to look up to other than soca. The idea appeared to be a noble one, hosted in the name of the great Lord Kitchener. We reached out to Mr. Norega to get some answers. On our first attempt, 4TT News asked him, "Mr. Norega, you have received funding for a camp that never happened. Can you tell us what happened?" He said that he was in a meeting. Pressed further, Mr. Norega insisted that everything was above board. He promised to make time for us at a later time. The call was abruptly ended after we asked him about the check. Mr. Norega then sent a text message saying that he was still in a meeting to call him in the morning. 4TT contacted him the following day. He explained that the program would help young people, adding that he had been working on the event for years. When asked which schools that letters were dispatched to, according to his proposal, Mr. Norega did not respond directly, but said that he was in communication with schools. Pressed further on the question that he specifically said that invitation letters were already dispatched to the schools. Mr. Norega then said that it was the Ministry of Arts that was handling this for him. We asked him if he spoke with the minister about his proposal prior to submitting it. He said yes. We then asked him why he listed his company in the proposal as being registered, when in fact it was registered 2 weeks after the proposal and the payment was made. Mr. Norega said that he went to Tobago with his wife and that he did the registration when he came back. Pressed on why he listed his company as being legally registered when it wasn't, he said that the name search was already done with the Ministry of Legal Affairs. We also asked Mr. Norega if a potential conflict of interest existed, as he was a director of the NCC, which approves funding for TUCO, the organization that he solicited for and received monies from. He said no, and that this venture was a private one and doesn't involve the NCC. 4TT News then asked Mr. Norega if he was granted permission by the family of Lord Kitchener to host an event in his name. Mr. Norega said that the camp was still being planned and that he didn't want to approach the family until all the plans were finalized. He then added, "Let me make this clear. The camp is not in his name per se. Not that we don't want to respect his contributions, but it will be an event for all Calypso icons," adding that this year the camp would indeed recognize Kitchener. We then read out his proposal and a letter from the minister, where it clearly states that the camp will be honoring the late Lord Kitchener. 4TT News attempted to ask him if the family didn't give their blessing, then what would happen? Mr. Norega then ended the call. We sent him a follow-up text message to clarify the companies that he said that his company had worked for, such as CNN, TV6, and the United Nations. He said that he wasn't interested in any bacchanal and that he wasn't prepared to have any further questions. Mr. Norega concluded that any printed electronic material that can be considered slander would be dealt with through legal channels. Following our conversation with Mr. Norega, he was seen visiting TUCO's office in Port of Spain. 4TT News then contacted the late Lord Kitchener's family. Queena Roberts, who spoke on behalf of the family, told 4TT News that no one in her family has any knowledge or insight of any camp in her father's name. She says, anything of this nature should receive approval and consent from one of the decision makers of the family, and as of today, no such approval has been given. While we understand that the public loves and desires to celebrate the works and life of Lord Kitchener, we would appreciate that projects or programs of this nature get our approval and blessings. 4TT sent several questions to the minister, and up until this report, no response was received. 4TT News also contacted President of TUCO, Brother Lutalo Masimba. We asked him several questions as well. He did not respond. We then contacted TUCO's Assistant Public Relations Officer, Mr. Devon Seals. We asked Mr. Seals, how did TUCO issue a check for $1.25 million for an unapproved proposal? Mr. Seals, who sits on TUCO's General Council, said that he didn't know about any such proposal or subsequent payment. He said usually such proposal would have to be approved by the Finance Committee, then the General Council, Asked if he was a member of the Finance Committee, Mr. Seal said no. How could the minister direct Tuco to make a payment for this unapproved proposal? How could Tuco then pay out $1.25 million in taxpayers' money for a proposal that wasn't approved? Why was the check paid in full? And why was it paid in Mr. Norega's personal name? A source familiar with the situation said that the funds were allegedly earmarked for a minister's election campaign. Is this a repeat of the millions of taxpayers' dollars that were paid out to a live sport contractor with no work being done? Reporting for Trinidad and Tobago, this is Nicholas Thompson. And remember, if you are a witness to wrongdoing, send us a message and we will highlight it.